Absolutely. And now you're speaking my language. And to that, I would say you would need some form of UBI. We should be taxing the robots.
I'm confused.
Just be happy with who you are.
So I just had a quick question that actually is somewhat related to race, if you. What is your opinion on the pretty set in stone economic fact that there are populations in America getting screwed over by immigration, and that it seems to be the policy of progressives and soc dems in general to just put a bandage over this rather than fix the actual issue?
You said the degeneracy was gone, but you seem to be filling the plate, my sir.
Got him.
I'm straight.
So if you want me to answer your question genuinely, study after study has shown in America, for example, that there is a net benefit to society economically through immigration. Through immigration, and I'm still mispronouncing it. Well, I'm too
Immigration. I wonder why.
Yeah, but there's a net benefit to society, and so it doesn't matter what perspective you want to look at it from. If it's not one that's coming from xenophobia or some kind of deeply entrenched bigotry, you can look at it from an economic standpoint. So it's better for your country to allow immigrants in.
The issue with the economic standpoint I have is that it's pretty clear the main benefit seems to be a growth in GDP, which I'm sure you know is not a great detector in terms of how well the country itself is actually doing. It is just more of a detector of how well in general investment is. So the issue I have here is that I haven't really seen anything or heard any arguments from people that come from your side about how the benefits from immigration necessarily offset the negative effects that it has on, for instance, unskilled work.
Wait, what?
Okay, so first off, it's not just GDP. Again, like if you have contrary studies, please point them out. But most of the studies that I'd be referring to come from not far left, pinko commie publications.
Well, I'm not saying they are.
They come from pretty, yeah. And it's not just GDP though. That there's numerous benefits economically to society. But and then when you say to offset the negative effects, what exactly are the negative effects you're talking about?
Well, we have several studies showing that there's anywhere from an 8 to 12% wage drop for unskilled workers, specifically high school dropouts, which every year 1.2 million high school dropouts enter the workforce. It's something like nearly 20 million workers are high school dropout. So basically immigration lowers the wages for basically close to 20 million people in the workforce by 8% at the minimum, which, while it's not a massive drop, to me that seems significant enough. Now, leaving aside the fact that this would also leave plenty of them unemployed because they have to fight for jobs against immigrant workers, and this is leaving aside the fact that things like H-1B visas allow immigrants to come to this country and basically lower the wages of skilled workers like computer science workers, by like 10%. Like they're taking massive wage cuts, and there doesn't really seem to be a massive benefit in terms of the actual middle class or the working man. It just seems like the only people that benefit are the people that you claim to be against, which is these capitalists that are basically stoking the flames.
Well, there you go. So why don't we just have open borders and we stop with these kind of, imaginary lines in the sand we've drawn called countries? We could do that.
Well, I mean, I don't see how that would work in the functional economy we have now. I mean, I'm guessing you'd want some sort of I don't even know. Like, it seems like people that are on your side years ago used to be in favor of protectionism, and now it seems like it's shifted, and it doesn't really register to me as to why that happened. I was wondering if you could shed some light.
Okay. So first off, again, I mean, I'd have to see these studies you're talking about that reference the fact that you're saying that unskilled labor wages plummet due to immigration, because most of what I've seen is contrary to that. And again, that's coming from not left-wing publications, but pretty centrist and Republican think tanks. But all that being said, does this have something to do specifically with immigrants as a workforce? Like, is this in relation to like white genocide, or
No, it's in relation to the fact that I think soc dems specifically have are my main issue which is that instead of fixing the issue, which is limiting immigration, which I think would necessarily raise the wages of everyone involved, including the few immigrants that you do allow into the country,
It doesn't
because
work that way.
now you lower the well, it does because you're naturally increasing the labor force by allowing more immigration, and the rising labor force decreases wage value.
But again,
And in the economy we have structured now, which I understand you might not like totally agree with to begin with, so I'm open to hearing a different structure that where this would work.
right. I mean, I think we're both being charitable on both ends here, right? Because this does seem to be that line of reasoning where, like, from my perspective, why specifically immigrants?
Well, because it's something that people in this country are able and should be allowed to control in terms of
But
like
there's
voting on it.
sure, but there's lots of things within the labor force and the workforce that you can do, and you can do that domestically as well. That doesn't necessarily have to do with immigration. I mean, immigration, I think you're picking as a hot topic because I think, and I mean, I'm just assuming that there's probably something underlying beyond that as well, right?
Uh, Not necessarily. I mean, I'm not going. That would obviously diverge into different points, but I mean, more specifically, I'm just talking about protecting the American worker here because it does seem like progressives, rather than fixing the problem, would rather let the American worker basically get screwed and then say, "Here, we're going to give you, basically free stuff in order to appease you."
I don't remember anyone's policy being like, here's free stuff.
Well, I mean things such as like Medicare for all, which I don't disagree with, by the way, but basically the idea that instead of like helping you get a job in order to earn income, so that way the government doesn't have to subsidize you, they say, we're going to allow immigrants in here, we're going to allow these capitalist pigs at the top to keep raking in money and gaining all the benefits, and we're just going to throw you some stuff as you need it to appease you so you don't get upset about it. That's my viewpoint.
Okay, so here's a very, very quick thing. Under the current economic system that we have, the people who are replacing the majority of the American workforce happen to be robots. It's not immigrants coming into the country. It's the labor force being replaced by automation. And again, under the capitalist system that you have, anything that can be automated will be automated eventually, and that applies to everything. So, rather than pointing the finger at people from other countries for whatever reason, you should be looking internally and domestically to that problem as well. I mean, I'm not even going to get started with outsourcing. That major corporations are basically seeking consistently to find better ways to maximize profits, because that's the point, right? Every CEO has a fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders to maximize profits at any cost.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong, and I understand. Like, I'm not coming from this from the side of whatever you call chuds or whatever. I know that's probably what your fucking chat's saying or whatever, but I'm coming at this from the angle of I don't necessarily care about capitalism. I don't necessarily care about, like closing borders. I care about people in this country that are getting shafted.
Sure, but again,
Part of this includes AI, I understand, but that is an upcoming problem we're going to have to deal with, and there are actually people on both sides, not just the left, that are looking at that issue.
sure,
But I think that the one thing we could do is look at what immigrants are doing to the workforce, specifically people that are on the lower end that a lot of progressives claim to care about.
right, and again, you're pointing the finger at something that isn't the overarching problem. I mean, you're basically you're scapegoating the issue using immigration, whereas you should be pointing the finger at things, again, like automation is replacing jobs at a far faster rate than any kind of immigrants be taking our jobs kind of rhetoric.
Well, by this token, then, and I'll wrap it up soon because I know it's going for a while. By that token, we're also going to have AI replacing the immigrants that are already here to begin with. So what happens once we have a massive influx in a labor force that in 10, 20 years isn't going to even exist in the first place?
Absolutely, and now you're speaking my language, and to that I would say you would need some form of UBI. We should be taxing the robots.
I'm confused.
By what, taxing robots?
Yes, are you implying like you're taxing the people?
So, if major corporations are replacing huge swaths of the American workforce with robots, those companies should then have to pay a certain amount of tax, and or there should be a support system set up and a structure so that human beings can have a certain quality of life regardless.
Well, I agree with that, and I'll I'll make this my final statement, and you can reply to it if you want. To wrap it around, I don't disagree with what you're saying about AI, but the problem still stands that we have a massive immigration workforce that is hurting the worker right now. So my question is, before AI decides to take over and we start taxing these companies to king, wh- like, what are we supposed to do to help these people besides implementing ideas that again just seem like bandages rather than fixing the actual problem?
Yeah. So again, instead of fixing the actual problem, you are scapegoating the actual problem, and your scapegoat du jour happens to be immigrants in this case.
That's
Correct.
I'll take that answer. That's fine. Thank you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Do you like cozy environments with other wholesome people? Well, then come join the Discord. It's got a whole bunch of stuff to help you with creative endeavors, such as stock footage, royalty-free music, and an amazing community of people looking to help each other out and uplift your content. Join the Discord now by going to weareserfs.com. That's weareserfs.com.
We would like to thank Miranda Marone. You are our monarch, and we thank you for our indentured servitude. We would like to thank our lords, Ricky Pilgrim, I'm Raft, Michaela Schmid, Tomospin, Ferrer Tajon. You are all the pillars of our organization. To our Knights of the Square Table, Paul Parafit, Daniel Kahn, Clement Chutskoff, Alan R., Josh Mickelson, and Dr. Zayas, Dr. Zayas, Cooper Pilot, Andrea Lynn Epperly, Dylan Bythe, Terry, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. And to our merchants, thank you for taking mercy upon us.